Hello guys, and welcome to the 10th episode of the How to Make an RPG in Unity tutorial series. I think I said I was going to post a video like a few days ago. Um, I apologize for not being able to post, but because uh, school is really busy and it just ended like today, so I'm taking the time off now to be able to make a video for you guys. I'll be able to upload a lot more regularly, probably once every 2 days. Also looking for an editor. You might have noticed that my videos are quite bland. So if you're good at editing, um, then please text me down in my with my Discord in the comments below, and I greatly appreciate it. But yeah, anyways, with that said, let's get started on the video. So the first thing we're gonna do today is we're actually gonna change our whole entire structure for our system. So in the last episode, we established the system where like, oh, if you know you click on the object, then you know you'll be able to drag it, and when you let go, it should appear in that you know slot that you dropped on. But I think that system's actually quite not good. As you can see here, it duplicates, dragging doesn't really work. And with a little bit of testing from a copy of this project, I realized that it was really hard for us to actually click and drag. And what I mean by that is that Unity, or like either my computer or like just my Unity version, or something wrong with like what's happening with me. And like whenever I try to drag, it kind of lags a lot because like I put a visual on it, and it just wouldn't go to where I would. It would always just like stay like a few centimeters away from where I am supposed to drop. So I have to be really, really precise when I drop. So I decided, you know what, instead of doing that, let's just switch up the whole system. So we can have something like Minecraft where you click on it, it'll attach to your cursor, and when you click on another box, it'll drop there, and then that's that. And if there's like an item there, then you'll drop the item and everything else that comes along with it. So yeah, so with that said, let's go on and start fixing some stuff. So first thing we're gonna do is we're actually gonna completely delete this because this is pointless now. And then we can go into player data and we can delete all of change slot. And yeah, so now we're just left with all of this. And another thing is that the reason the items aren't actually deleting is that because we never made anything to make it so that it will delete. So what we can say is else, we can copy this here, and then instead of setting the hotbar slot image as sprite, we can set it to null. So there's nothing that's going to be displayed. And we can set all of these values to be 0, 0, 0, 0. Great. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to edit some of these values. So we're going to still reload the hotbar, but upon release item, we're not actually going to actually have any. I think we can actually delete release item too. Yeah, we can actually. So let's just actually, yeah, okay, let's just delete item. We can just delete on item release. And all we really need is on pointer click. So how this is going to work is that the basic structure is going to be we click an item, the item is going to be deleted from our hotbar array, is going to be attached to a custom object that we have here, data, and then we're going to instantiate a UI that's going to follow our cursor around. And upon another click of another slot, if there is an item there, then we're going to drop the weapon or item that we have currently attached to our cursor. And if there is no item there, then we're just going to move it to that slot. So we can you can see here we already have a basic structure. So we have is dragged is equal to true. So what we can do is we can say if not is drag. So if we are currently are not selecting anything, then we're going to do all of this. Pretty standard. Else, then we're going to copy all of this, but we're going to change something stuff. So this is going to be false. Move to slot will be equal to -1, which is nothing. And this is basically like a way of saying like, oh, it's null, or we can set it to null. I'm just going to set it as -1. Hotbar index num is going to be equal to, actually, yeah, it's going to be equal to our data, I believe, that we have here. And then we don't actually need this. We can actually set data to be null, and then we can reload the hotbar. And yeah, another thing I want to change really quickly is I actually want to change this. actually, let's do it. Let's do a test first. So let's actually go back into Unity. I was gonna say, we have some errors. Oh yeah, right. So we have to delete these two once we delete the two functions. But I was gonna say, so it would be probably better because there's more area to click on if we instead of having um, our our actual item image to be the dragging initiator, we can actually have the background slots. But we'll test this out first. So let's actually go into player and we can see here all of the data. We press E and then you can see here. Okay, so yeah, it's instantiated there. So we click this again and we can't drop it for some reason, which is very interesting. Okay, so after a little bit of debugging, I realized what our problem is. So if you scroll up here, you can see that when we actually, sorry, not up here. If we go to ground item, you can see that when we do pick up, we actually set the OBJ data of that slot to be pickup item, which we didn't do here. So let's actually just quickly add that. And yeah, we can change data to be null because we already know what our we already have the script we're referencing. Instead of I, we can have or actually, sorry, we don't paste this here. We paste this here. My bad. And instead of I, we're going to have index num. And instead of pickup data, we're going to have passing obj. Very simple. Or actually, not passing obj. My bad. Data. There we go. Okay. There we go. Now it should work. Also, another thing to note, we should also actually set so when we drag this, is going to be equal to null. Also, one thing to note before you go back into Unity, I made a mistake earlier in the video. I put that line of code here. I actually just want to delete that, and you want to just move it above reload hotbar. And then yeah, after that, it'll be fine. So let's just do a trial run. And then the next thing to do will be to create a drop function and to deal with and to attach a sprite that will follow our cursor and to deal with some what will happen if we do in fact have already an item here and we try to move that item into that slot. Now we can do a couple of things. We can either do a swap between the items or we can make one of the items that we're trying to move drop. But yeah, I think we're just going to do a swap because that would be simpler. And next, and also another thing is that what if our player clicks on the outside? Now normally in like other games like Minecraft or Terraria, then this player will simply just drop the item. Also, you can see here we have an error. So if we tab out while we click, it says gone forever. But the data is still there, so we just click again, it'll appear. So there's a couple of things we need to fix. But I think all of you would like to probably know how to make a sprite that will be following the player first. So that's what we're going to do. So, or sorry, not the player, the cursor. So upon is drag on void update, we're going to, or over here on void is drag, we're going to instantiate a new sprite. And we can create something like a sprite object, like a default prefab, and we can just literally just set the prefab, the sprite. Let me just delete that first. So we can literally just set the default, the sprite prefab to be our specific item sprite that we have stored in our scriptable objects. But yeah, a couple things we can do. I'm just going to make a prefab real quick. So let's go back into Unity and we can go into our assets folder, right click, create a new folder called prefabs. This one we're probably going to be, actually we already have a prefabs folder, my bad. Go back into Unity, we can right click on the inspector, hierarchy, sorry, my bad, and press UI, and then we can create an image or a raw image, depending on what you need. Well, if you have texture or something else. So we have image, and we can change this to be called prefab sprite. And I guess this will be the sprite that we'll be following our cursor around. We can drag it in here, delete this because it's now a prefab, and then go into our Unity and or Visual Studio's code, and we can say public um, public game objects dragging or dragging sprite. And yeah, now let's go back in Unity and we can just set our dragging spot sprite to be our prefab that we just made. So we can come here, scroll down, and drag this right here. My bad. And just drag this right here. Okay, so once you have dragging sprite done, what we're going to want to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to say, we're actually going to create another variable. So we're going to say, create another variable, sorry, my bad, called private game object um, temp drag obj. And this will deal with, be like the stand-in for our temporarily like created obj, or hold the variable for our temporarily created obj. So we can say temp drag obj is going to be equal to instantiate um, dragging sprite dot and then we can say dragging sprite dot transform dot position, and then dragging sprite dot transform dot rotation, and we can say temp drag dot set dot transform dot set parent as our canvas, and we can just have another object here that references our canvas, public game object canvas, and we just, whoops, I spelled canvas wrong, forgive my bad spelling, and we set the parent as the canvas object, and sorry, my bad, canvas dot transform. There we go. All right, and once we click it again, then we're just gonna set temp drag obj dot destroy, or sorry, destroy temp drag obj, and we can just say temp drag obj is equal to null, just in case it doesn't set to null automatically. And it shouldn't follow us yet. Or sorry, the sprite shouldn't follow us yet, but if everything works out, then when we click, the sprite we created earlier should, oh, my bad, we forgot to set the canvas, my bad. That makes sense. So we can just go to our player, and we can set the canvas right here. And now when we press play, everything should work. So we press E, we click, and it's set as active. And it should be, yep, so it's attached to the canvas and everything works fine. So next thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna set this to be equal to, or sorry, temp drag obj.get component image. We're gonna set the sprite of it is going to be equal to data.sprite. And now if we press play, we should be able to see the image turn out to be, whoops, yep, the sword, and we click here, it disappears, we click again, it appears, and everything works fine. So the only thing we need to do now is just to make it follow us. And to do that, that's very, very simple. All we're going to need to do is we're going to have to go into our void update, and we can say basically if what do we call it? Temp drag obj is not equal to null. So if temp drag obj happens to have a variable stand-in, then what we're going to want to do is we're just going to say temp. We actually have to create a new variable for vector2 for mouse position. So this will store our current, whoops, mouse position, and this will basically store our mouse position. Okay, and once you're over here, once you're done making a temp drag obj and the mouse position variable, actually we need to change this to a vector3, I just realized. So once we have the mouse position variable, then what we can do is we're going to say temp drag obj dot transform dot position is going to be equal to temp obj dot transform dot position, comma, and we're going to say mouse input dot mouse position. So this gets the current position, and then what we're going to say is we're just going to say 1, and that's basically going to be the speed of our movement. Oh, my bad. We actually have to say vector2 dot loop, and then there we go. If you want to make this slower, you can make the 0.1f. Put an extra one. I'm gonna make it 0.3 actually, just because I like that like artificial lag that this creates. But yeah, So now when we go back in Unity, we can go into the prefab, and what we can say is, where is the prefab? Okay, here it is. We can actually change this to be not a recast target. And then yeah, let's go back into Unity, pick this up, and you can see it follows us with a slight lag, and if we click, it gets put down. Um, Okay, and basically once we're done that, we can actually just delete this. I don't know why I added this. I think I was trying to make like a smoother lerp system, but like we don't actually need this. And we can go back into Unity and we can test this out. Um, just to make sure everything works again. And then we can press E. Yep, everything works fine. And you can drag it around. And before we go, I'm just gonna fix a couple of bugs. So one of the bugs is that if I am picking up a weapon, I shouldn't be able to scroll through my hotbar while I am in my inventory. Because this gives the player an advantage to like switch between items, and it gives them like a way to abuse the game. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come here and we can say go to reference your UI manager. So we can say private UI manager, and on void start we can say manager is equal to find object type UI manager, and then we can say we can only equip hotbar if manager dot if not manager dot what was the variable we had for our inventory? I believe it was, oh sorry, okay, so I guess we don't really have one, but we can just say if not manager dot inventory dot active self. So if it is not active, then we can do this. Otherwise, we cannot scroll on our hotbar. Actually, I don't think this really does anything because um, this only changes the UI. And if we go and zoom, like after we, you know, tab out, then our hotbar will still technically be set to whatever number we scroll to, and that would leave the player very confused. So we can actually just wrap it around here so that we don't actually have our um, scroll wheel error that, or not error, but bug that we're having. Um, and we can press E. You can see I scroll fine. As soon as I come here, I'm trying to scroll, but I can no longer scroll. And this still gives the player an opportunity to abuse the system because, even though, um, you know, I'm not technically my scroll index is at 1, they can like move a sword in there if they're under attack, and maybe they were holding like something in it, like that they weren't supposed to be holding in combat, like a map or something. And this gives them an opportunity to like just like drag their sword and put it into the desired slot. But yeah, that's okay. If you guys want to fix that, or like trying to find a way around having the player be able to do that, then you're welcome to find a way. But I'm not going to dwell on it in this series. And one of the last bugs we're going to fix it before this episode ends is that if we actually pick up an item and if we click on it, it kind of just stays in the middle of our screen until we continue. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, um, basically, if we tab out, then we're going to go into UI Manager and we're going to reference our player data. So we can say private player data, and we can say if it is not active, then we're going to do data dot, what was this function called? It was called drag item, and for our index num and passing obj, we can literally just say um, our move to slot and data. So we can say data dot move to slot and data dot data. And I think that's pretty much it. And so now if we go back into Unity, and we try to pick up an item, oh my bad, I forgot to set data as data. So in void start, what we can do is we can say void start data is going to be equal to find object of type that player data. And now if we go back into Unity, we can wait for the game to load and we can press play. And you can notice that we actually have some errors here. Let me just find out why we're getting these errors. Oh, okay, my bad. Okay, so I forgot to set it so that we're only going to do this. We're only going to do this if is drag is equal to false. So, or sorry, if is dragged is equal to true. So if is dragged, data that is dragged, then only then are we going to actually do that, run this code snippet here. Otherwise, there's no point because we're not even dragging anything, so there's no point to for running that. And now, yeah, we can go back into Unity. If we move our cursor here and we tab out, it respawns there and without issue. Okay, cool. That's pretty good. In the next episode, we're going to deal with swapping items, dropping items, and adding the inventory system. And in the episode after that, I know one of you guys requested in the comments, we're going to be creating an actual attack system. It's been a long time since we revisited our attack system, but I thought it would be easier to have an inventory and hotbar system before we can actually attack anything. Um, and in the episode after that, we're probably just going to make everything look nicer. And that's basically the game plan that we have for now. Those 3 episodes will probably come on the next week because my schedule is really not that busy anymore. So you guys will benefit because you guys will get a lot more game development content. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.